The title of this story is Matthew Harris Champion. Chapter 1. Matthew. Dinner time. Mum's voice was loud, but Matthew didn't hear, of course. He was sprawled in his usual place on the bed, staring at posters of Olympic athletes. He could see it now. He, Matthew Harris, the youngest person ever to compete at the Olympic Games, would come out of nowhere to take the gold medal. The crowd would go wild. He'd wave modestly and do a victory lap of the stadium. People would say he was Matthew, are you deaf? His mum was annoyed now. She pushed the door open and looked in. Sorry, Mum, said Matthew, following her out. He sat down at the table with his back to the trophy cabinet. He didn't even look at Josh. Dad grinned at him. Your brother's telling us about a competition he's got coming up, he said. It sounds like he's got a good chance. Dad winked at Josh. Might be something else to add to our cabinet soon, eh, son? Matthew scowled at his dinner plate. Dad's comment was so typical. Josh, the wonder athlete, all-state champion and general superhero, was going to add to his collection of trophies. Matthew stabbed a carrot with his fork. It isn't fair, he thought. Why can't I be the hero for a change? He forced his face into a smile. Cool, he said. Chapter 2. Dad looked at Matthew thoughtfully. That reminds me, he said. The Newtown Tower Fun Run is coming up. There are medals for the winners. Matthew nearly groaned out loud. Great, he thought. Josh could do with a few medals to go with his trophies. We could train together and help each other out, said Dad. What do you think, Matthew? Matthew nearly choked on his hot dog. Me? He spluttered. Why not? Grinned Dad. Or would 51 flights be too much for you? Matthew wasn't listening. He was already imagining himself bursting onto the observation deck. Matthew Harris wins the gold medal. For the next few weeks, Dad and Matthew trained hard. Every day when Dad got home from work, they would run up and down the stairs to their flat. It was hard work, but Matthew didn't care. He could see himself wearing that medal. Mum wasn't so sure. Don't get your hopes up too high, will you, Matthew? She said. It'll take a real champion just to make it to the top. But Matthew didn't listen. He knew he was going to win. Chapter 3. On the day of the race, Matthew and Dad joined hundreds of other competitors outside the building. A glance at all the rippling muscles showed Matthew that many of them were serious athletes. Doubt flicked across Matthew's mind, but he pushed it away. This is my chance, he thought fiercely. Matthew Harris is bringing home a medal. He started warming up, like the Olympic athletes on TV. Then he caught sight of their neighbour, Mrs. Carter. Matthew's mouth fell open in surprise. Mrs. Carter had just had her 71st birthday. "Don't look so shocked, Matthew," laughed Mrs. Carter. "I was quite an athlete in my day." Chapter 4. A voice on the loudspeaker told them to take their marks, and they were off. Matthew lost sight of Dad and Mrs. Carter as he sprinted down the street towards the tower. Matthew went flat out until level 15. By level 30, he was exhausted. This was further than he'd ever been at one time. His legs hurt and he was panting like a dog. "Slow that breathing down, Matthew," said Dad as he came up behind him. "If you keep panting, you won't get enough oxygen." Matthew nodded. He concentrated on his breathing, in and out, in and out. "That's better," said Dad. He made a face. "This is tougher than I thought." Matthew groaned. Tough wasn't the word for it. He shook his head grimly. "Don't wait for me, Dad," he puffed. "It's too hard to talk and climb at the same time." "Are you sure?" said Dad. Matthew nodded, and Dad started to climb faster. Soon he was out of sight. Matthew was now passing the 40th level. His chest was heaving and he'd slowed down. People were passing him in a steady stream. He was on the 46th level when Mrs. Carter passed him. Matthew's eyes started to burn. "What's the point?" he thought. "I don't have a hope of getting a medal." He nearly gave up. He was about to stop when he remembered what Mum had said. It'll take a real champion just to make it to the top. Chapter 5. Matthew gripped the banister and made himself put one foot in front of the other. The stairwell was quieter now. Matthew couldn't hear anyone coming up behind him. "At least Josh can have a good laugh at my expense," he thought. Josh had never come last at anything. He was hauling himself past the 49th level when he saw Mrs. Carter. She was hopping slowly up the stairs, using the banister for support. Her ankle was red and swollen. She smiled when she saw Matthew. "I'm going to finish this race if it kills me," she joked. Matthew started to pass her. Great, he thought. Now he wouldn't be last. Then he stopped. "Let me help you," he said. Mrs. Carter shook her head. "I'm fine," she said. "You get going. There are only a few more steps." Matthew put an arm around her back and grinned. "I'll race you," he said. Mrs. Carter grinned back. She let him help her until they reached the door to the observation deck. Then she let him go. "Go on," she said. Matthew looked longingly at the door. "No," he said. "You were way ahead when you got hurt. You deserve to win." Mrs. Carter laughed. "It's a bit late for winning," she said. "Why don't we go together?" Matthew nodded, and together they burst through the door to the finish line. Daily News. Extra, extra. Youngest and oldest competitors cross finish line together. Let's make a spelling game. Type your name and click on Next. Look at these sentences from Matthew Harris, Champion. Choose 5 of the blue words for your spelling words. Here. Place. Could. Youngest. Compete. Click on Make Game to play the bubble spelling game. Roll over the word bubble to hear the word. Rabbit. Roll over the sentence bubble to hear the word in a sentence. The rabbit hopped across the paddock. Type the word. If you want to make a correction, press the delete or backspace button on the keyboard. Click Go and your letter bubbles will float into the big bubble. Click on Play. Type the first word and click on Go. Here. Type the next word and click on Go. Place. He was sprawled in his usual place on the bed, staring at posters of Olympic athletes. Type the next word and click on Go. Could. He could see it now. Try again. Type the next word and click on Go. Youngest. He, Matthew Harris, the youngest person ever to compete at the Olympic Games, would come out of nowhere to take the gold medal. Type the last word and click on Go. Compete. He, Matthew Harris, the youngest person ever to compete at the Olympic Games, would come out of nowhere to take the gold medal. Try again. Compete. He, Try again. Find a copy of the book to check the spelling of this word. Compete. He, Matthew Harris, Let's make a spelling game. Type your name and click on Next. Look at these sentences from Matthew Harris, Champion. Choose 5 of the blue words for your spelling words. Would. Nowhere. Trophy. Competition. Something. Roll over the word bubble to hear the word. Rabbit. Roll over the sentence bubble to hear the word in a sentence. The would. Type the next word, nowhere. Type the next word and click on Go. Trophy. Type the next word and click on Go. Competition. Type the last word and click on Go. Something. Brilliant! You've spelled 5 words correctly. Play again or get a certificate. You be the reporter and write a newspaper front page story about Matthew Harris, Champion. Click on Front Page to start. Make your own picture. Click on Help to watch a demonstration. Complete your ID card by typing in your name. Click Next when you've finished. Set a date. Choose the month. Choose the day. Great, that's today's date. Type in a name for your newspaper. Click on a headline for your story. Youngest and oldest racers finish together. type your story. Write some sentences about the most interesting Drag a picture for your story onto the newspaper front page. Write a caption or label for the picture. Check your newspaper carefully. If you want to make any changes, click on the Revise button beside the part you want to change. Otherwise, click on Publish to make your newspaper. Now print your newspaper. Write a silly story with the Silly Story Maker. Type your name and click Next. Type your class name and click Next. Choose the best name for an elephant. Ernest.
I'm all about the old school.
Choose the best line that rhymes with hares. Listening to the cheers.
Huh?
Which animal would you like to race against? A snake with a snowshoe on. Which animals would you like to have as pets? Moles. What kind of pants would you like to wear? Watermelon pants. What would be the hardest thing to hide in your lunchbox? A statue of a grizzly bear.
Hey!
Click on Go to get your silly story. Click Next to read your silly story. Click Listen to hear your silly story or read the story yourself. Ernest was an elephant. He wasn't very fast. He liked to race up towers, but he always got past. He got passed by the rabbits. He got passed by the hares. He got passed by the tortoises. Listening to the cheers. He got passed by a snail and a slug named Ron. He got passed by a snake with a snowshoe on. He got passed by the moles. He got passed by the ants. He got passed by an octopus in watermelon pants. When he got to the last step on level 84, a statue of a grizzly bear was blocking up the door. He eased and he squeezed and pushed himself past. Hooray! Said Ernest. I didn't come last. What a great silly story. Click on the print button to make a copy to keep or play again to make another silly story.
Compound words. A compound word is two words joined together to make a new word like foot, ball, football. Now click on any two words to make a compound word. Skate, board. Skate, board, skateboard. School, bag. School, bag, school bag. Book, store. Book, store, bookstore. Wheel, chair. Wheel, chair, wheelchair. Now you know what compound words are.